So, hey Capricorn, my name is Chris and this is your beautiful reading for summer 2026. And it's a good summer, I'm telling you. It's a freaking good summer. The big change is coming, I'm telling you. There is the Page of Swords, but you already... That's the Hierophant, right? And, okay, let's make it even. Then we got the King of Pentacles. Then we have to take... That's the Magician. Are you kidding me? Are we going a little further here? With the Strength card, that kind of goes in line with the Page of Swords, but we're coming to this. Let's just, that's 5 cards, and I'm going to do 10 for you. So, by the way, check out your Sun, Moon, and Rising sign. So, to be fair, we got the Two of Pentacles here. Now we have to take what we see here. There is the, that's the Eight of Swords, right? But we got the Ace of Swords. That's 4. Hanged Man energy that goes in alignment with your overthinking mind, worrying too much, right? Use your mind wisely. This is going to be a topic. And we got the... Okay, we got the Magician and the High Priestess. If you add up the Magician and the High Priestess, you end up with the Hierophant. So this is big. So 5, 10. Bottom of the deck, work. Work to do. But this is going to be good work. So the way it spreads out here, I mean, I'm going to order this. I'm not doing the Celtic Cross. I'm not doing a particular way of dealing the cards, I'm just making sense of them. So the first thing that comes to mind is this combination. Very, very powerful, great arcana stuff here on the table. Very, very powerful. This is great arcana, right? This is everything. The Fool here as well, and the Hanged Man, yeah? But this is kind of your overthinking mind. So there is so much to unpack here. First of all, there is a balance here, and it seems to be a new consciousness that is finally here. That is not coming summer 2026, Capricorn, my friend. You're dealing with dualities as well, especially Capricorn, right? And the most important thing is that you keep them in a balance. So Two of Pentacles, and that is the new consciousness, not either or consciousness, but keeping both sides in a balance. That's very, very important here, and that is your new consciousness. And you're kind of, there is an old way, basically, one-sidedness. And when I talk about this new consciousness, that is kind of duality in a balance. And we're going to talk about a little bit about transcendence and integration as well, Not just this one, not just the other side, but actually there's a synthesis. So thesis, antithesis, synthesis. That's Hegel, my friend. And, 1, 2, 3. So, okay, we unpack this. Hold on. So, no longer one-sided consciousness. That also means that you take care of your mind. You might have been there worrying a lot. Using your mind to overthink, using your mind to stress about things that you cannot change. This is kind of bringing you in this Hanged Man position and is kind of blocking your energy if you go down that rabbit hole. But the Hanged Man here has always this little aura around his head. So the Hanged Man is waking up from that overthinking energy to a much more mature, wiser way to use your thinking consciousness, right? So this is the new consciousness. You're no longer naive, right? You see the world for what it is, but you're not catastrophizing about this. There's a lot of energy here related to Swords energy, how you use your mind. So the best way... or let's just say the worst way to use your mind is basically to, go on social media and then read all the comments to some news or whatever happened, right, in the world. And then you just go down there and fight in the comments with someone else. That is the worst you can do. This is totally, you're turning around, you're not going anywhere, you're just lowering your frequency, you're down in, arguing with other people, you're getting angry, you're getting frustrated. This is not serving any purpose. This is just a downward spiral. This is pretty much your mind in this overthinking, turning itself around its own axis, around and around, going nowhere mindset. That is the Eight of Swords. This brings you in a disempowered position. So whatever is happening in the world right now, the world is a mess. I think it's not going to stay that for much longer, hopefully. I think it's getting better, but you have to be an agent of that better time. And the best way to be helpful in this is to, take charge, take responsibility for your own thinking and feeling patterns. So, this is the new consciousness, your consciousness in balance. And consciousness in balance, what do we got? We got polar opposites here. The magician is always trying to fix something in the outside world. The magician is always trying to impose power and change something in the outside world. I'm taking charge of it, right? That's the magician. I'm taking charge of it. I say what's going, taking charge of the outside world, saying what is what, kind of a little bossy, he's saying this is how he's pointing towards, he's using basically the energies and the inspiration, and he's pointing downwards. This is how it's going to be, right? And total opposite of that is the High Priestess, right? This is about, again, duality with the two columns in black and white, intuition, taking a step back. This is the magician. This is the alchemist. The High Priestess is the alchemist of the tarot deck, right? The magician is trying to force things to happen. The magician is reading all the comments and telling all the people that they're full of, and arguing about stuff and trying to fix other people. And if I just explain it to them, they're going to, this is, to some extent, you need to be able to make your point. If your point is, if you're dealing with people who are ready to receive your point. But usually when you go on social media and you're down in the comments, you're not meeting people who are ready to take your point or reflect on them. They don't want a discussion, they want a fight. So don't do that. That's a very, very stressful way of dealing with your conscious, intellectual energy. Don't. It's not going anywhere. Half of the comments are written by bots anywhere, and propaganda bots and whatever. So you got better things to do. One way of, there are things you need to do in your life, and you need to be assertive about them, and you need to speak your truth, by the way. I think it was Tolstoy who said that in order for the truth to be heard, it needs to be spoken with love. And then there are things that you just don't care about. You cannot change. You cannot end the war in wherever is war. Pick one, right? There are plenty of wars. Plenty of psychopaths having plenty of wars. There I said it. That was this side, right? A little, psychopath, angry. That was this side speaking. But this side knows that you cannot change other people. You can only change your own consciousness. And by changing your consciousness, by favorizing and prioritizing inner peace, you're contributing to peace in the world. And this is, you know, you have to do stuff. You have to be assertive. You have to be, you know, you can't allow anybody to trample over you. So you have to have an edge ready to fight if necessary. But don't fight useless fights. Don't fight windmills. Don't fight, you know, always ask yourself, is this necessary? What is there to gain? Is it just external recognition that I'm after? Then it's not worth it. Much more important is that you have internal harmony, right? That you can live with yourself, that you live in integrity and in authenticity, that you have tidied up your little chamber inside, your heart, your emotions, your subconsciousness, trusting your intuition. So these two, the High Priestess and the Magician, I go outward and want to fix the world, and I go inward and try to fix myself in the sense that I cultivate harmony and inner peace. These two in harmony, thesis, antithesis, synthesis. We're transcending the one-sided duality, you know, and we're arriving at something that is kind of both and not, you know, kind of not this one and not just this one, but kind of both of these at the same time. That's the Hierophant consciousness. And that Hierophant consciousness, that balance, right? That balance of your consciousness in favor for your inner peace, not wrestling the lion. You know, if this, there are two signs with the infinity symbol over their heads. That's the Magician and that's she. That's her approach. You know, when you have the High Priestess and the Magician and the Hierophant, which is very, very strong, you arrive basically, that is the conclusion. This person is not fighting or wrestling the lion. She's taming the lion. Shows she has basically all these qualities. She is enforcing her will on the lion, but not through force, not through sheer power. And she's not just, you know, sitting there and hoping that everything is going to be all right. She is cultivating her inner peace. That's definitely High Priestess energy. And through that inner peace, she's taming the lion. She's still enforcing her will onto the lion, right? But not through force, not by wrestling, not by fighting the lion. She would lose. She's just a lady. That's a lion. But both of these aspects come together and form something different. And this is the approach of the... this is basically the spiritual teacher. You're teaching this, right? But you're also applying it. And in applying that, there comes the King of Pentacles, right? Not trying to force anything. You cultivate inner peace. You know what you want, what you don't want, what is worth fighting for and what is not worth fighting for. And then you're not fighting for it in the sense that you're trying to just go in and, you know, I want to do this and brute force and things like that. But there's a tenderness, a kindness, a radiation of inner peace. So you cultivate inner peace. And that's not meaning that you give up your agency in your life. You still know what you want and you're still going for what you want, but not the magician way, not the I force everybody else to do my stuff and it's only my way or the highway. And no, there's wisdom at play here, applied wisdom. And then you're working with that. Underlying energy, bottom of the deck, is the Eight of Pentacles, working in that consciousness. And again, whenever you fall into that trap, you're not immune to it. I'm not immune to it. You're not immune to it. Every now and then, when you watch the news for an hour and you think, oh my God, the world is such a mess. And oh my God, how should that all, end? And, blah, 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 right? There are plenty of problems. I don't need to explain them to you. The world is a mess. The world is not run by the most intelligent and compassionate people as it should be run. Obviously, there are a lot of people who are very one-sided in their approach, right? But you are overcoming this one-sidedness. It's never either or. It's always both. Think of, there is this, when you have black or white, right? It's kind of either or. But then you have the yin-yang symbol. That's Taoism or Taoism. There's a little white spot in the black side and there's a little black spot on the white side. So that keeps it in a balance. And that principle of not either or, you can still be on one side, but you must recognize the other side within yourself. That's pretty much Hegel's idea of synthesis, right? Hegel's dialectic, actually. Yeah, that's the Hierophant. And how do you apply it? You still go after what you want. Of course you do, right? But the way you do it is smarter, wiser, kinder, not so much concerned with force, but with wisdom. You know how it's done, and you're going to apply that knowledge, and applied knowledge, that is wisdom. There's the wonderful Empress, and the Empress shows up this summer again and again and again, and almost every reading, I'm not sure, almost every reading, every summer reading that I did so far. Inner balance. And that is your new consciousness. That is pretty much the consciousness for the next 20 years. That we are collectively finally arriving at. And it kind of arrives with you as well, right? Balance. And by the way, make balance a habit. It's a practice, right? It's not so much an intellectual problem. I talked about Hegel, I talked about dialectic, right? And transcendence and integration, all that jazz. But it's not so much about, you don't need to understand it necessarily. What you do is basically, we all know how to be bossy and try to, tell people how things should be done, and nobody needs to learn that. We all kind of know how to do that. But what we need to learn is the other side of it, without giving up the one side. But if you learn inner peace, if you learn to be yourself a friend, if you learn to stabilize yourself and focus yourself on what you really want, not being scattered here and there and worrying about this and worrying about that war and that president and that, dictator, and you're giving your power away, right? So come back to yourself. And what is the practice? Meditation and breath work. If you are in that mindset, overthinking energy, kind of feeling, oh my God, the world is such a horrible, messy place, and what can I do? And you feel disempowered and hopeless, and, oh God. Meditation, breath work. 10 seconds in, and then you breathe 20 seconds out. The out breath should be twice the in breath. whatever you do, don't, if you can't do 10 seconds in and 20 seconds out, then you do a little less. But you should make this comfortable, but the out breath should be 2 times longer than the in breath. And at the end of it, you should really push all of the air out. Don't get dizzy or anything, but push it all out. And that's very important. Negative breathing, pushing it all out, make the out breath 2 times the in breath. That's how you release that negative energy. So if you realize, oh, I'm in that overthinking mode, I am tempted to comment on the comment, I am tempted to watch this other video about how bad and horrible the world is, that's a waste of time. This is disempowering. And then what you do is use that time. If you have the time to do that, you also have the time to do breath work. 10 seconds in, 20 seconds out. I say this again. And you do that if you've never done it, do it for 5 minutes. If you do it for 15 minutes and combine that with meditation, just sitting there. Are you man enough, woman enough, unicorn enough, whatever, to just sit there with yourself in silence? A lot of people can't do that. There is passion here. Also taming your own passion, taming your own fire. Sometimes we just get angry when we look at the world, but not being tempted to give that anger more power than it needs to be. That's the old version of yourself, 50-10 of Swords, relates to the Hanged Man, the 8 of Swords, and even the Page of Swords, but the Page of Swords is already stepping out of this mindset. You're not naive, you learned something from that, right? And then the Clarifier. Yeah, broken heart, right? You learned probably the hard way. Bottom of the deck, there is the Knight of Wands. So be passionate, but don't get burned. Be emotional, but don't drown in your sorrow or in your tears or whatever. Keep it in a balance. Meditation, breath work. If you just do these 2 things, even if it's just 5 minutes, it will transform your life, I'm telling you. And that's the Hierophant mindset, and that's the Hierophant approach. And this approach, doing what you want, but being very careful about what is really important for you and what is just artificially projected onto you, suggested to you. Oh, please do care about this shit, and please do care about that shit. But it's not yours. What is really yours, what is really important for you? To sort that out is a practice. And then go for what you really want, what brings you joy and happiness. Do you need the high-paying job? Do you need the external recognition? Or do you, at the end of the day, really just need a good life in inner peace and contentment and happiness, right? Contentment, happiness, it doesn't need to be grandiose all the freaking time. Sometimes just having a cup of tea, either alone or with good friends. How great is that? What a blessing is that? So does it really need to be external recognition? Do you need to assert yourself all the freaking time? Or is happiness not also very, very important? And you can still do the things that are important to you, but in a kind of wiser, gentler way. And this, by the way, leads to the King of Pentacles is here as well. We didn't even talk about him. So you're getting somewhere with this new approach, right? The Magician, High Priestess, there's Sacred Earth again, shows up all the freaking time again. So I talked that this is a lot of how you deal with your own consciousness. There are so many swords energies here. So you deal with your consciousness not by overthinking, keeping it in a balance, meditation, breath work, focus on what you really want, and then going for it in a non-aggressive, persistent, powerful, strong way. Not freaking fighting the lion, taming the lion. Sacred Earth, okay, that's pretty much all about, if you can, if you have there are people who spend hours a day to, bitch on social media about stuff that they can't change. No, don't do this, right? If you have an hour to bitch about stuff that you cannot change on social media, you have an hour for breathwork, meditation, and going for a walk. That's for sure. And that's the big advice here. Don't forget nature, right? Connect, ground yourself. And, by just doing that, taking care of your own shit, right? Not trying to change the world, because most of the time there's a slim chance that we have any say in this war or that war or the state of the world in general. But if you take responsibility for what you can change, and what you can change is your state of consciousness, your physical body, the way you interact with the world, what do you give power and priority in your life, and make sure there's inner peace and contentment on that list, very high on top. And that's a practice. That's a daily practice. So show up if you want to show up for yourself, if you want to change your life, and show up by doing that, by taking responsibility of your life in that way. You're already a light that shines. That sounds a little corny, but hey, it's a tarot card reading. Your light that shines, and it's kind of merging with the other lights that shine in their own little way. And if a lot of people do that, bam, things will change. Let Spirit be your guide, and in meditation, in breathwork, you're meeting that frequency. That was intense, and I hope I made myself I hope I came true to somebody. If it resonates with you, share, like, subscribe, leave a comment, let me know what you think about it. Don't bitch about anything in the comments, don't argue with other people in the comments, but I would be really happy if you would tell me whether it resonated with you or not, whether it gave you something, things like that. You can also check out the yearly reading. All the yearly readings are just fantastic for 2026. This is not another 2025, be assured of that. This big cycle, 9-10 years, is over in 2026. So it is a fantastic reading for you as well. Just protect your inner peace. That's important. And that's all I got. Hopefully see you next time. Namaste.